Yeah, you just have to be there.
You know, you had to be there.
And it was just great to say, like, I was there for that, you know what I mean?
You have to be there.
I wish I wasn't there. You know?
You have to be there.
Right, you had to be there this week. We're absolutely delighted to welcome Mark Moriarty, chef, podcaster, author.
Yeah,
new father.
New father, yeah. Hence why my left eye is drooping, as I said to you here before we came on air. 4:30 this morning, projectile vomit. Cleaning, feeding. It's a new life the last few weeks.
Did you have a boy or girl?
A little girl, little Lily. She came a little bit early, which was a shock. But I'm not quite there yet, but I'm slowly getting my head around just how it all works. But yeah.
Were you cooking at the time when you got the call 6 weeks early?
I was not, but I was in my busiest period. So I was a very good husband. I had managed my diary to be, I was going to be there for the last 2 weeks and be around the house, and I was going to be on paternity leave then for Christmas and through January. But that meant in October I basically had to do 3 months of work in one.
Right.
And then she arrived at the start of October, and I was like, oh my God, how am I? So we were in New York. We actually filmed the Christmas TV special like 2 days after, and I was doing the voiceover for it there the other day, and I was like, why are there 3 pages of voiceover for one episode? Usually we have maybe 10, 12 lines.
Yeah.
And then I look back at the footage. Not only do I look like I've had a stroke, but I'm slurring my words. So it's basically a whole episode voiceover. The food looks great.
Do you remember any of that?
No, it's a bit of a blur, all right.
It is.
Yeah.
You were asking, does it get easier? I'm not sure it gets easier. You just forget. I think the body just learns to forget how difficult the birthing experience is. Like, obviously the woman goes through it, but when you're it's like a bomb is going off all around you, and you know preparation for it. Like, we did all the courses and stuff, but they're nonsense.
Sorry, the courses are nonsense.
Absolute bollocks.
They give you like this perfect scenario, and then I remember they kept saying in the courses. Now, obviously, the people there are great. They kept saying it's not like the movies. It's this happens.
Yeah.
This happens. Every part of it was like the movies. To the point where I've never driven so quickly from the house to the rotunda at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, I just hope the police stop me, because this is the moment I can go, sorry lads, my wife's in labour.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen like that.
No, it is. And it's kind of worse than the movies in many ways, because you're actually part of it.
Yeah, true.
Did you do the hypnobirthing courses? You did that one?
My wife was into all that, and then when baby decides to arrive 6 weeks early, it just goes out the window. All the planning and all and you're just there, and it's like, right, you're the experts. Tell us what we need to do here to get through this.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's my morning story.
Yeah, but it's so PTSD. You're in the midst of it right now, and
I'm seeing a lot of live sport, which is one of the pluses of the blur.
That is you can always catch up on stuff, and it's much easier now than it used to be. You can literally stick on any match or highlights.
YouTube highlights last night, after the sick was cleaned up, I'm going to watch the Premier League highlights.
Yeah, you can actually keep up with things. There's this weird period of time now before the baby starts to move, where you're stuck and there's nothing to do except consume cookery shows
or listen to Off the Ball.
Exactly. Your interest in sport, when you grew up, so you filmed loads of the show in Kerry where you're with your folks, but you didn't grow up in Kerry.
Yeah, so I'll probably explain that when it comes to my first one, but very much Dublin, but my father's side of the family, very much Kerry, my mother's side, very much Dublin, and I would have spent a lot of my youth up and down, weekends, schooled in Dublin, and I would have had my first couple of jobs. I worked in Dingle for a couple of summers, so I would have spent the whole summer down there since I was yay high, and myself and my father's big thing to this day is Kerry football.
Right.
So in Kerry, I was the strange kid with the Kerry jersey and the Dublin accent, and in Dublin, I was the strange kid with the Kerry jersey and the Dublin accent, and have been a passionate Kerry supporter ever since the day I was born, I suppose. And then with the TV show, look, you're cooking food, so you're trying to mix it up all the time. And Ventry, where my father's from, they moved back down there about 8 years ago full time. It's just a beautiful place. So we thought, what better place to go and film and cook, and then as well, it was like I get to go down there for 2 weeks and see the folks and socialise in the evening, and it's work.
Yeah, very nice. Ventry is incredible, isn't it?
It is. And,
Did you know how beautiful? Because when you're a kid, you don't really appreciate, like, I look back to where we grew up now and like, oh my God, it was so beautiful at the time. I was like, oh, this is so boring.
Oh, not at all.
appreciated it?
No, not at
Yeah.
all. Now I got into food through fishing, so we would have always had a fishing boat, and it sounds very idyllic, but like, I just got used to the fact that back at the Crossroads in Ordevour, you had, I think, 24 All Ireland medals
Yeah.
between the family, and would go to the post office, and Darrow Shea might walk in, or you might meet Darrow Canada back at the Gaeltacht pitch, and I think impressionable as a kid, you start to look up to these people as, oh my God, and then you see them out in front of 85,000 people in Crow Park. That's for me the magic of the GA.
Yeah.
Is I suppose the local community piece of it. Did I appreciate the beauty of it? No, I definitely appreciate it a lot more, and appreciate the fact that as a chef, I didn't realise how unique it was to be catching lobster and crab and black sole and turbot and all this stuff. I was just like, as a kid, I was like, well, this is what we do down here. And then now as you see the pricing and you work in top restaurants and you realise that you were gaining an appreciation for ingredients long before most kids would have the chance to.
You started cooking seriously at a fairly tender age. When you were in transition year, you got fairly substantial work experience, didn't you?
Yeah, I decided I was going to pursue this interest as a job.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, well, transition year's coming along. I had a really good home ec teacher as well who had been a chef in a previous life. Did the really Irish thing, so sat down at the kitchen table and
Is this
wrote.
in Dublin?
In Dublin, yeah.
Right.
So wrote the same letter 10 times handwritten and sent it off to what I thought were the 10 best restaurants in Ireland at the time.
Right.
Saying, my name's Mark, I'm blah, blah, blah. I want to be a chef. Could I come and work for a couple of weeks? And basically spent the second half of transition year working in the likes of Thornton's, Michelin Star, Le Crevan with Derry Clark, went up to Nevin Maguire and was treated exceptionally well and just absolutely loved the kitchen and the atmosphere and the chat and the strange characters and the sort of abnormal hours and the late nights and all, and kind of fell in love with it through that.
And is sport a big part of your life still at that young age as well? Because it feels to me you wouldn't have as much time, anywhere near as much time as your typical teenager who wants to play sport.
Yeah, so I would have been Gaelic and hurling, Kilmacud Crokes from really young age, played in school, lost twice in Crow Park in the Cumann Munskill, the primary school, so I know how it feels to to lose a couple of finals in Crow Park. And up until minor level would have played not to a very high level in football with Kilmacud on their sort of second team, was a better hurler. And golf was my real go-to. So golf was the only thing I could fit in around sort of the intensity of working. I would work 80, 85 hours a week. But I always made sure, and to this day, and even with Lily arrive, I'm still hopefully going to put that out here with Grania, would always have a tea time at 7:15 on a Sunday morning.
Right.
And that was my thing. We'd stop you going out after work on a Saturday night, because we'd always be closed Sunday, Monday. So we'd stop you going out from going out partying every night of the week, up early, phone off. The absolute opposite to a professional kitchen is a golf course.
Yeah.
And that would give me a great sort of peace of mind and freshness. Plus, no matter where I've ever worked, we've always been closed on Sunday. So Sunday is always my favourite day, and it means you could watch sport, and you always had live golf from America on a Sunday night, which is my peak time of the week.
Because you spoke about how you're kind of atypical of someone in your early 20s, that you have a preference for the golf over going on the tear.
Now there was a fair bit of tearing, yeah, but my wife would say I'm probably born a couple of decades too early, that I'm actually a 50-year-old in a 30-year-old's body.
You're just coming to your, you're just requesting to your...
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I'm loving now is all the lads I would have grown up with, they've arrived, they can't go out drinking every weekend now, and they're taking up golf and they're all crap. And I was like, you should have started, lads, when you were 7. Now you'd be flying at this age.
What are you playing off?
I'm playing off a poor... What am I playing off? I'm playing off 4.
Oh, right.
I'm not playing 2.
Wow.
Okay.
But during COVID, when the restaurants closed, the only thing you could do was golf, so I just practiced every day, and I got down to 1.
Wow, okay. You're serious?
Yeah, it would be serious. Yeah. Incredibly, I would dare say, I can say it here, I would be as passionate about golf and sport as cooking and career and that. Yeah, particularly the golf and the GA.
The golf is addictive, though.
The golf is addictive because it's also that selfish thing. It's a one person sport, it's you and a ball. It's getting in the hole in the fewest amount of shots possible. Now, this year, I did actually go back to GA. I was getting so bored I hate running. I hate the gym. It's so boring. So I went back and played
I agree.
junior football.
Oh my God.
So I went back to
And was that crack?
Division 10 South,
Right.
Dublin, with Geraldine Moran's GA club, and we won our relegation playoff in extra time against a load of 45, 50-year-olds from Ballantyre St. John's to stay up. It was an absolutely epic encounter, and I absolutely loved that this year. And having the bit of you train once-ish a week, and you have your matches. But I was accountable again. So instead of going, you know what, I'm not going to go to the gym, it was like, well, actually, there's a group of us here and we need to train. So
Yeah.
you felt like you had to go, and then you played at the weekend. So I enjoyed that this year.
So the fishing this gets you into the cooking, but were there serious cooks at home? Like, do you come from a family of people who take it seriously, or like, you know, were you kind of made to get involved with dinner preparation?
So
from a young age?
you're always casting shade on your mum's stuff and saying yours is slightly better, which I'm presuming is interesting. Always, I'd say I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times in your shows. Your roulade is better than hers. There's several other things.
But it's also her recipe, so it's a bit of give and take.
Okay.
I would not cross my mother. My mother is the boss of our house, always was. She was a great cook. My father's useless. He used to. I used to love the odd time my mother. They were both working. He'd get a call sometimes that she couldn't get home, and he had to cook the dinner, and it was like he had to go and figure the third secret of Fatima. And he could never multitask, so he'd always make like an Irish breakfast for dinner, which I hated, or lamb chops, which were grilled beyond grey. But he'd have something in the pan and something in the grill, and he'd get stuck in the middle. So he'd always have the tea towel over his shoulder, and he'd used to like blow, he'd go as if he was blowing sweat off his brow. And he'd just get stuck between the pan and the grill and have nowhere to go. And then the smoke alarm would go off in the house. They were my memories of my father cooking. But thankfully, my mother was brilliant. And from business perspective as well, brilliant. And we'll get on to my dad as well, because actually when I was going through the sporting pieces, I was like, most of these are related to spending time with my father, which was actually cool in one way, yeah.
Yeah, we have found that when we ask people about this, it's not actually about... So sometimes it's I was there when player X did this incredible thing, like the Zidane overhead kick, and that is incredible. But actually, mostly when we ask people to talk about these things, it is about, as Colm would say, how it makes you feel.
Well, that's sport, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it, and I think that's why we all care about it so much. Can I just go back to the decision to write letters to the top 10 restaurants? When did you decide you wanted to be a chef? Was it obviously before that?
Yeah, I was. I wouldn't have been the most confident kid in school, particularly I loved primary school, I remember, and I loved playing the football, and that was my thing or whatever. And then not quite as I went to a rugby playing school, and in first to third year, I probably didn't settle as well in hindsight, looking back. And then I was into the cooking, and I was good at the sort of the home ec. And then all of a sudden, it was the time when you had the likes of Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver and Heston Blumenthal on TV, and it was starting to become a kind of cool thing. I found I was good at it, and it was almost the thing that I was like, I'm good at this. This is going to be my thing, and this is going to be sort of not a label. It was going to be what I was going to become known for, and
Your identity.
Identity. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And just had good people around me. You're very impressionable at that age. Had good teachers who were like, if you're into it, go and try it. Now, I had a couple of teachers who I remember vividly saying, you never make it as a chef. You never work at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and it does actually drive you. Had a great English teacher as well, who I remember the first thing he did was put on the board was the word potential. And he framed school as, it's not about results, it's not about a number of points, it's about this word. And everyone's is different, but you have to strive towards that potential. That stuck with me. And that's why I decided to just go and write the letters, because there was nothing to lose. And you know what? Looked after really well. I could have gone into the first kitchen and no one could have paid attention to me, and I could have got lost in a corner, because I was literally a fat ginger kid in a school uniform standing in a Michelin-star kitchen. And I've made a point now when I get younger people in is like, give them the time, because we need people like that coming through the industry.
I think it's also very unusual that you wrote yourself. Normally, a lot of those requests come from parents. My son needs this, can you sort them out? But actually, if we would tend, if we get the letter or the contact direct from the student, to be like, okay, come on, you can come in, because you made the effort here.
Initiative.
Yeah.
Can anyone be a good cook if they have the right attitude?
I think anyone can do anything with the right attitude. I've seen in my work in top restaurants I've worked in, I'd rather someone with a good attitude than someone with skill. And you do get a lot of people who have a lot of skill but a bad attitude, whereas you can't do anything with that, but you can really work with good attitude. And I don't know, does that go for every... It's probably the same in your gig?
Yeah, totally, yeah. But I mean, when you're at home to start off with, how do you know that you have a talent for this? Is it more that you have a passion for it rather than a skill level? How
I think
do you
it
know?
starts with an interest, and an interest can become a hobby that you cook well at home and it's your sort of downtime. And I'll have a lot of people who will listen to the podcast or watch the TV show or read the book who go, I just love to whip it out and cook something at the weekend. And that's what for me is golf on a Sunday. But then in terms of a career, it's such a hard job that I think, and I've noticed with people who are at the top of their game interviewing in the podcast, it develops into an obsession and it becomes, there's a relentlessness to trying to get better every single day. And I often find you're always trying to prove something wrong. The people who get really to the top in cooking and lots of things, there's always something niggling. There's this chip on the shoulder somewhere along the line that goes, I'm gonna prove that wrong. And for me, it was maybe not getting on so well in school in the first 3 years and going, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it better than everyone else. And that kind of kicked off. And then you just become, if you're a competitive person, I wasn't good at sport or certainly on a football, but cooking was my vehicle that I was competitive at. And it sort of took off from there.
That's the fascination, because you're in the 1%er, because nearly everyone cooks. So that's the defining difference between you and the rest. And like when you watch shows like The Bear or Boiling Point, is that all resonating with you? Like, yeah, that is how tough it is in your experience.
The Bear is exactly. Now, it's a bit American focused, but the intensity and the feeling of running a restaurant, The Bear portrays that beautifully, because it's actually, there's very little cooking in The Bear.
Yeah.
And cooking is the easy part of it all. So when you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm going to cook this food and blah, blah, blah. When it actually comes to running a business, it's dealing with John, who's sick and doesn't want to come in, and Mary has handed in her notice, and
one of your staff shooting up out the back.
Yes, and the plumber can't come, and the water isn't functioning, and the health inspector's outside, and we're dealing with email complaints from last night, and the price of butter's gone up 100%, and your wife's at home going, I haven't seen you in 80 hours, and the baby's crying, and The Bear portrays that beautifully. It's managing all that to create a successful restaurant is the key part. You have to be able to juggle and be somewhat good at a lot of different things. Whereas putting the food on the plate at the end of the day is the easiest part of the whole thing.
Which brings us to the point that you have made a conscious decision not to run or own your own restaurant.
Yes, so I have developed, I suppose, I made a conscious decision early doors, working in some really high performance kitchens, to say, you know what, I don't want to end up as a sort of head chef who may be professionally well accoladed but mightn't have everything balanced in their life. Potentially comes from parents who work in mental health, having that sort of awareness from an early age. But I was like, okay, how do I use this experience and being sous chef in a 2 Michelin star restaurant and start to plan long term? So I decided to build not a brand, but to use my name a bit. Develops into TV shows. You're in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. It becomes cookbooks, it becomes podcasts, you win a couple of awards, you do a couple of competitions, and you kind of have to be a bit cheeky along the way and say yes and work it out after and back yourself. And now I'm at the point where thankfully I do a lot of sort of private dining, and I have the media profile and do a lot of work behind the scenes with different restaurants, and have built a nice little company that does a lot of different things that also allows me the flexibility to play the golf on a Sunday morning or go to Crow Park or go to a golf tournament or whatever. And for me, that's happiness.
How did the media side of things start? Because there's a lot of talented chefs out there with personality as well to match. So how did it happen for you?
I like talking. I like talking about food.
You were approached, were you, to start with?
I did a couple of competitions, which was, again, the competitive piece. I wasn't making the first team in Kilmacud back in the day, and so I decided to enter cooking competitions. And I was working in the Greenhouse restaurant, and at the time we were one of the best restaurants in the country, and we were pushing for Michelin stars, and I loved that whole competitive environment. So I said, I'm going to enter the Irish Young Chef of the Year, and I ended up winning that in year 2. But then I went on, I was doing pop-up restaurants on my Sundays off to build the brand name. And I was running out of road of being the Irish Young Chef of the Year, so I said, I'm going to have to come up with something else here. And this competition opened by San Pellegrino in the world's 50 best restaurants for the best young chef in the world. I said, okay, well, I have the photo of the dish and I have the recipe already on the laptop. I'll throw it in.
What was the dish?
It was celeriac. It was a vegetarian dish, and it was all based around the culture of Ireland. So it was telling the story of Guinness by baking a root vegetable, a celeriac, in fermented barley paste and hay and barley flour and salt, so that you crack it open and it smells almost like the idea of stout with hazelnuts and a sauce of reduced celeriac juice and a tea of...
Sounds good.
Yeah, a lot of storytelling. And long story short, I won, basically. I won the UK. I got shortlisted, went to London, cooked in Harrods against 10 other people.
The same dish?
The same dish.
Right.
For Claire Smith, who's 3 Michelin star, OBE. And won that. She was my mentor. Went to Milan. It was partnered with Vogue magazine. It was at the Milan Fashion Show. It was it was the X Factor production team. I didn't know all this going in, and won against 20 other people and was technically the best young chef in the world that year. And that just took off. It got listed as well on the Forbes under 30 list, and all of a sudden you start getting calls from TV slots. And
what are the nerves like? What are the nerves like heading into the final in Milan? By that stage, you must have cooked the dish 1,000 times.
No, I was really confident in the dish. And you know what made it really easy? I had won the Irish Young Chef of the Year, and that was judged by Elena Arzak, who is 3 Michelin star chef.
I have the cookbook. I've been there. Amazing.
So that gives you a lot of confidence to know that Elena Arzak has eaten it and has said it was one of the best dishes they've ever eaten. Now, it's not my dish as well. Like, you have a lot of input from a lot of your mentors along the way. Claire Smith judges it in the regionals, and she goes, it's an amazing dish. It wins. And I went over to Royal Hospital Road. She was working as Ramsay's head chef at the time. And I remember going in, and she's a scary enough chef at times. And she basically just said to me, she goes, Mark, the dish is good enough to win, so just make sure we win.
Right.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I went in, and again, you're in your comfort zone, you're cooking. Once the stuff arrives and you're cooking, it's like, I suppose, a sports person gets on the pitch and all the talk stops. You 5 hours, you go. You don't even see anything around you. You don't see any of the glitz and glamour. And then you get up and you just have to sell it like a politician trying to get elected. And yeah, won.
That storytelling in cooking, like Thornton would have been big on that. Where along the way, where did you pick that up? Or was that always part of your thing?
Bit of Thornton. He was good at it. Worked for Michael Villian in the greenhouse, and he's a genius chef. Best chef I've ever worked for, one of the best chefs in the world. But he used to actually send me out to sauce plates at the table a lot, because he figured I could spiel away and tell the story of, well, this is the lamb from Achill Island, this is what we do, and this is the farmer, and blah, blah, blah. And you do that a couple of times a night, every week, 5 days a week, for 2 or 3 years. You get very good at coming down and talking to people and understanding if people are into it and you want them to, you need to shorten it, or they're really not into it and you need to just give the bare details, and you start to understand how people, and I think that's where the talking and the storytelling element of it came.
Are people into it? I would say Irish people are mad into it. Are they?
You'd be surprised.
Okay, right.
The people who are into it are there, and it's like that film, The Menu, with Ralph Fiennes, where some people come and they're like, you could tell them anything and feed them anything, and they're just loving it.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who might be guests or they're corporates and they're not into it, but they're there, and like, it doesn't matter what you say, they ain't going to be happy. Then some people come in a terrible mood. I know we've had people, they've broken up at a table. One guy, he proposed years ago at a table. She said no. They only had the canapes. She walked out, and we went down. We were like, "How would you like to proceed, sir?" And he goes, "I'm here now. I'll have the whole." So sometimes it doesn't matter what you serve people; they're just not in a good mood, and that's the magic of restaurants.
Did you ever have an incident where you're properly balled out of it by the head chef or someone in the kitchen?
Oh God, yeah.
Do they stick with you? Certain incidents?
Not really. It's like you're in service. It's like being out in Croke Park in a pitch in a match, and that's all just. Whatever said during service stays in service.
Well, it's healthy that you have that attitude, because I can imagine it would break someone who doesn't.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's a give and take with that. So you can go and bollock someone out of it in a kitchen in service because you don't have time. People are down there paying 500 quid and you've overcooked the piece of turbot, and it's just, you can't send it. So you bollock someone out of it. But you're also part of a team that's very well looked after and that are made to feel like the restaurant is also there. So it's not like this is the head chef and you all just work for me
Yeah.
and I'm the star of the show. I worked in kitchens where it was like we shared the success. If we won an award, everyone went on stage. You were made to feel like you were part of the... So you're like, well, of course I'm bolted out because we're all part of this progression and this wanting to achieve a goal. Now, if we didn't have that and you're getting bollocked out of it, all of a sudden you're starting to think, well, I'm just here, like, obviously I'm learning, but I don't feel like I'm part of the team. Why would I do this? So
Have
there's
you
that give and
experienced?
take.
Have you experienced both of those dynamics?
I have.
Probably inevitable, isn't it?
It is
If you're gonna-
inevitable. I actually didn't care because you have to have a very selfish attitude. It's like, okay, you're bollocking me out of it, but I only ever worked when I was training in the top kitchens. So I was like, you can say what you want to me because at the end of the day, this is on my CV and what I'm learning, I'm going to use it to my advantage no matter what happens.
If you have the ability to not take things personally,
oh yeah,
in general, in any work you do, that's pretty much going to be the making of you.
grow up with braces and ginger hair, you're well able for it. And you play for Kilmacook Crokes and you're out and playing in some parts of Dublin where the parents are the ones giving it to you as a 9-year-old.
I can imagine you're fairly composed in the kitchen. Would you ever lose your temper as well with your colleagues?
I have done, and generally if I lose my temper at events that I run myself now, it's because I'm stressed.
Right.
And the best run kitchens, there's no need to shout because a perfectly run high performance kitchen is just not so much in silence. It's one or two voices talking, communicating about what's happening, and everyone knows what their job is. You're a step ahead. Before someone asks for you to pass the tray of the fillet of beef, you're already doing it. If you're hearing a kitchen that's shouting, it's not functioning properly. The systems aren't in place. Communication isn't working, and that's the management in the kitchen are not doing their job.
It's funny, is like I use myself as an example, but I'd probably be a sample. A lot of people is like, I cook very basic stuff, but I'd be fascinated by cooking shows and TV shows like MasterChef.
But you probably love the bits of those shows where it's in the professional kitchen.
Yeah. But why do people love? Why are those shows so popular?
I don't know. I'm delighted because we're on season 6 of the TV show. I think people just love. There's just a therapeutic element to watching people cook on TV or flicking through a cookbook, even if you don't make anything out of it. This food is comfort, and we've done the podcast, and it's like food is the common denominator. It doesn't matter if you're the president of the United States or you're someone on the street. Everyone has to eat every day, so it's that common denominator that kind of links everyone together.
I think people like watching dynamics in workplaces too.
Well, it's always relatable, isn't it, to what goes on? Like workplaces are all the same, particularly high performance ones.
I don't watch any of the MasterChef or Bake Off. I watch the people who are going to teach you something small that you can take
You're
away.
into the art.
Well, not because I'm in for the food.
You're into food.
Yeah, I want the food to be slightly better that I can make, and the tiniest thing transforms something mediocre into something really good.
So, like for example, we'll put our TV shows are 24 minutes on TV. We do 3-4 recipes. The key to my TV shows are people are going to sit down. They're not going to make most of the stuff. In fact, most of the time they're not going to make any of it. But they need to come away from the 24 minutes and go, oh, I didn't know that. When I make the spaghetti bolognese tomorrow night, I'm going to not add the salt too early in the mince or the mushroom so the water doesn't come out too early and doesn't boil as opposed to fry. And they're the little tidbits that you're talking about from the professional kitchen. It's those little insights and people remember you then. They go, the fellow with the ginger hair, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about the salt or the butter or the whatever, and that's the key to the cooking shows on TV.
I have a question for you. I want to start making lunch for myself, right? But I need something that will keep me full. I have to go out and buy stuff in the middle of Dublin, right?
Yeah.
So what are you recommending that I'm cooking? That'll be easy enough too. Not too much.
So what I do for lunch is if I'm coming into work here, what I'll generally do is I'll bulk cook the main part of the dinner the night before. So I'm making a spaghetti bolognese or a curry or whatever. I'll make extra. And then what I do is I always have starch and salad. So there's perks to being a M&S brand ambassador. You get to get loads of stuff. So I'll always have the salads, but I'll make something like a massive batch of couscous or quinoa or something like that. Because I know that it's packed with protein in the case of quinoa, and I can put 400 grams of that in the lunchbox. No matter what happens, it's going to bulk me up. Plus, it's not any extra effort because I'm making the dinner anyway. I might as well make extra of the. That's how
But
I do it.
that's Mark Moriarty making that now. Can all of us listeners and viewers and us here, is that easy for us
All
to
you
do?
got to do is buy the cookbook, watch the TV show, listen to the podcast. It's all there.
You're buying
Shameless.
buying Chippers chips and putting them in the oven. Genius.
It's good, isn't
I
it?
do it all the time now.
Triple cooked. You just put
I'd
the,
never thought of it, but the triple cook, that Sesson Blumenthal is like,
Yeah.
this is really, you've got to do this 3 times, and I've been doing that for years. You took it and you make it and you took it and you do it again, but you're just like, short circuit.
Oh, shoot out with me again. You buy Chippers chips from the chipper.
Put them in the oven.
so the ones in the chipper are cooked twice already.
Oh, right.
Heston Blumenthal made triple cooked chips famous because they're the best way to make chips. But no one has time to triple cook chips. So you buy them in the chipper, eat them, but order an extra bag, leave them in your freezer.
Ah,
And then
okay, yeah.
all you do is whip them out, cook them again. You can do them in the air fryer even, and then you've got triple cooked chips.
Okay, I'm on board now.
And they are amazing.
I get you.
It's like, right, let's get into the games.
Now you're going to have to reel me in because I will talk a lot passionately about all of this.
Okay, so we have the 2007 Open Golf, Pádraig Harrington. We've got the 2024 Masters. We have Leeds against West Brom. We've Wexford Limerick in the hurling quarterfinal, and we've Kerry Dublin. Let's start with Kerry Dublin because
Yeah.
you've established your credentials as both a Kerry man and a Dub.
Yeah,
This is 2013.
like John Duggan with Clare.
Exactly. This is the 2013 All Ireland football semi-final, which many of us would say is the greatest game of football that
Well,
I've ever seen.
I'm glad you say that because obviously Kerry Dublin for me is transcends sport. It's an Irish cultural event. Like it is, it tells the story not only of 2 teams, but it is kind of like how Ireland functions. It's Kerry and it's the city in Dublin. Nothing like seeing the green and gold and the blue going out in a pitch in Crow Park in the summer. It would give you hairs on your arms. There was loads of them I could have picked. I picked this one because for me, it was one of the greatest games of football you say ever played. I think there were 4 goals in the first 15 minutes, but there could have been at least 6. I think there's nothing wrong with Gaelic football. I just think there's not enough games that mean anything. If I had it my way, I'd just go back to straight knockout like they used to back in the 90s when every game from day one mattered. But this was, thank God we have Kerry Dublin over the last 15 years because without it, there would be no GA Championship anymore. Colm Cooper, I think this was his greatest ever performance. He only scored 4 points, 2 from frees. So, like from looking at the stats, it probably wasn't.
It was the through ball to James O'Donoghue.
James O'Donoghue.
Yeah.
So they played him in almost his quarterback role in centre half forward, which he hadn't done at all, I think. And he draws 2 men, I don't know who they are, and he's almost stepping backwards as he pings this ball through. And he did it twice in the first half. And I remember being there and thinking, oh my God, like who saw that? And what I remember from that was at half time, Kerry fans can be notoriously not great.
The roughest type of fucking animals,
Yeah,
said
exactly,
Paddy.
As Kerry came off the pitch that day at half time, the noise from the Kerry contingent was phenomenal.
You were cheering for Kerry.
Yeah, I always have. And I
Right.
get so much shit about it. And it's hilarious because as a kid, they kept beating Dublin and I was getting shit about it. And then in my teenage years, they would beat them once in 13 years. And I was still getting shit about it. And I'm like, I'm supporting the losing team. And we always go to the Bridge Tavern on the Ballybock Road and the crack and all that is brilliant. And I just remember, and then going in, I think 69 minutes, it was Declan O'Sullivan just pulled one wide to go 1 point clear. And at that point, it's a level game going into injury time. Dublin win it by 8.
Yeah.
The famous
Yeah.
Kevin McMenamin. That was
He killed him right through the middle.
goes for the point. That was a classic goal that Kerry would always concede, where they draw the cornerbacks out, make a gaping hole in the middle, and you just have to run through Kerry. And he went for a point and botched it, and it went into the top corner. And
I always thought he tried to dink it over the keeper.
Not
to
no.
go. It was such a softly hit effort.
yeah, and I always get pulled up. All these Kerry Dublin games I'm always describing, and they do in Kerry, and particularly in Ventry, it's how Kerry threw it away, not how Dublin went and won it, even though they basically scored 8 points unanswered in the last the injury time of that game. And I remember actually I went down that night. We got in the car and we had a few pints, and we were driven down, and I was in Dingle by 10:30, and all I wanted to do was chat about this match and Colm Cooper's performance. But in Kerry, it was over. Championship was gone. Don't talk about it. Wait till next year. And I was going to pick 2019, So I have I know we've tightened time. I had a story there. This is how crazy my work life is sometimes. The 2019 final, another one Kerry threw away. Cooper gets sent off in the first half. Kerry should have won that match. Like, put Dublin to the sword that day. Typical Dublin, they get back in it. But I remember 71, 72 minutes, Cillian Spillane had come on, had scored 2 brilliant points. Kerry were a point clear. Me and my dad were in the lower Hogan thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen. David Moran, who's a Rolls Royce for football, bursts through the middle. And I think he's caught by McCaffrey or Fenton, turns him over in the middle of the pitch, and he couldn't get up off the ground. He'd given. But Cillian Spillane had broken free because they had a free man inside. And I still remember to this day, if David Moran goes a second early and pumps it into the corner, Cillian Spillane picks up the ball, either puts it over or does the usual, once he feels the touch in the back, goes down, gets a free, Kerry win the game. Doesn't, Moran gets turned over, blah, 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 rest history. Then my dad turns around to me and goes, oh, the replay is on the Saturday in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I have to be in Lima in Peru. I have a banquet that Monday. He goes, I can't miss the replay. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, actually, you're right. No, you're right, I can't. And changed my flight. So I was supposed to go down the Saturday. Ended up changing the flight to the Sunday morning. I had a dinner booking in Central that Saturday night, #1 restaurant in the world at the time. So when I go to the replay, Dublin were never going to give that up, win by 5 or 6. And I remember sitting there. It was the Saturday evening game and the lights were all over, all the phones and blah, blah, blah. And it was 5 in a row, a big moment. The usual, nothing worse than that feeling when a goal goes in Croke Park against you and you sit in the chair and the place erupts, that feeling. Anyway, long story short, get up on the Sunday, Kerry have lost, go down to Lima, cook dinner for 120, main course, go out on in the absolute shits trying to get ready, go out on the Monday night after the dinner, blow off some steam, go straight to the airport, get in the plane, come back. I'm back in Dublin on the Wednesday morning in the greenhouse on Dawson Street, get somewhat set up for lunch, and that 5 minutes before lunch service starts, I look and I go, if David Moran just put that ball into the thing, I wouldn't be feeling like this. Anyway, that was my Kerry Dublin.
That's what stays with you. It's not the bollocks in the kitchen. It's David Moran missing the chances. If you go back to the entry from 2013, it's the FRC panellists against each other. It's Jim Gavin, Eamon Fitzmaurice, and afterwards Fitzmaurice was like, he was so disappointed because he said everyone's been writing us off all year, and we showed what we could do today. Yep. Whereas Jim Gavin's response was, we never panicked. Yeah.
Hate that. Jim Gavin was so good. But you know what the best thing was? It was 2 teams backing themselves to go at each other and come out on top. They weren't, what happens now is don't lose. Those 2 teams were like, we're good enough if we play our best to win this game, and they both went out and did it. And that's why you had, I think it was 3-11, 3-18, one of the best games of football.
That might have been the end of football. That's the next year, isn't it? That Jim McGuinness has the performance against Dublin. After that, Dublin
was the job for Kerry.
Well, and Dublin decide that they're going to play with a sweeper, and they become this metronome, which is that. And so that performance never happens again. That is the peak, I think, of that team. And actually, the Donegal game, they were unbelievable that day as well. The next year, so Lima is like this tiny little footnote in this. Is that a regular? You're flown to Lima. You work around the world.
Yeah, you just end up at random events, cooking all over the world. So when I had won that competition and do my pop-ups in Dublin.
What year did you win the competition?
2015.
Right.
So I won. They gave me a plastic trophy, and it was great. I won the award. But I was like, hang on a second, San Pellegrino sponsored. So I said, I have a pop-up in Dublin. I want to release a menu, like a band release an album, and I want to bring it around the world as the world chef.
Right.
So I did 12 events in 12 cities in 9 months and have continued that on. I get luckily invited to exotic places around the world.
And do you still do that? Is that a format that you use?
Yeah. Right. Continuing it. I had 4 events in New York this year with the Dead Rabbit. We were in Singapore with Johnny Walker Blue Label last year, and there can be a good variety in cooking.
Yeah, that sounds great. Have you've been to Japan?
I have.
What's that like?
It's the most amazing place in the world.
Because everybody says that if you're a chef, Japan is the place you want to go.
And we were brought, again, San Pellegrino, as the first winner and probably the most media savvy of the winners of that competition. They always invite me to do things, and they were like, would you like to go on a 6-day food trip around Japan? And I was like, I think I can fit it in, yeah. It is mind-blowing place, yeah. Everything from the McDonald's to the public toilets to the 3 Michelin star restaurants is done to the top, yeah.
Have you watched Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat? It's on Netflix.
I've read the book.
Oh, I haven't seen that's next on my list. The TV show's really good, but they go to Japan and there's just this fermented soy sauce there's like this one maker. It's 200 years, and the gear that they're using is literally 200 years old. And I'm like, I bet you that tastes a little bit different from the stuff that I'm getting in the.
We went to a place in Wakayama was the prefecture we were brought to on day like 3. It's down where they actually filmed The Cove near there. They brought us to a soy sauce producer, and the barrels that they were fermenting the soy sauce, and you go in, your eyes burn, and it's all bubbling away. The same barrels they've been using since the 1600s,
Right,
the
so
same
maybe that-
family.
Right.
And it's amazing, like the culture and the tradition, and yeah, it's an expensive place to go, but would highly recommend.
Hurling. You said you were better at hurling than football. And is football your favourite of the two, or sometimes is there like...
Well, hurling's a better game,
Isn't it?
Unless Kerry and Dublin are playing.
Wexford Limerick in the quarter-final in 2001. Why did you pick this?
So, growing up, I looked up to my dad, still do. So he was basically the first sports psychologist in the GA. So he was a clinical psychologist for 40 years, but he was on committees in Croke Park in terms of club protection and whatever. And he was brought in by Pat O'Neill to the Dublin team in '95.
Right.
And they called him the head man because sports psychology wasn't a thing back then.
You couldn't, he's a shrink. No.
I think it was, I think the one of the first meetings when he was introduced, someone, I know who was, unnamed at the back, put up their hand and said, sure, we're not mad. So they won the All-Ireland that year, and he said it was grand because Kerry were crap at the time, he didn't have to worry about it. But he was with Wexford Hurlers then. He was with Tipperary Hurlers. He's been with Louth Footballers when they had a great run in the mid-noughties. But he was with Wexford, and it was at a time when I was 10 or 11, and I would go to every training session down in Wexford Park at the weekend. If I was allowed after school on Tuesday, Thursday, I'd go down. Tony Dempsey was the manager. An amazing team, like in hindsight, you had the likes of Dara Ryan, Declan Ruth, Adrian Fenn, Larry O'Gorman, Paul Codd, Mitch Jordan, brilliant hurlers. And I was basically taken, you know the way GA teams, it doesn't happen anymore. There was certain people would be brought into the squad. So there was 2 older gentlemen from Wexford who were bachelors, and they were given a role. They would manage the water or the kit, and they would be part of the squad for a year, and they would go to the dinners. And I was the kid who would manage the hurls.
Right.
And to the point where before a Leinster final on the Saturday, they did a training session in Croke Park, and I was allowed to tog out at 10 years of age and go out and poke balls at Damien Fitzhenry.
That's class.
Who was my hero. Damien Fitzhenry was the man. And then they lose to Kilkenny badly, and I think they beat Dublin or Antrim in the quarter final, the preliminary round, and they end up in the quarter final in Croke Park. And I was looking back on it, it's still it's like really old. The old
stadium and the advertising.
And the people and the clothes. And I was like, God, it doesn't seem like that long ago. Anyway, long story short, Slorgan Park Hotel is where we meet. It wasn't far from our house. We go up, and I get to go on the Tony Dempsey sits me beside him on the coach going into Croke Park. Garda escort, all the Wexford fans lining the road in Slorgan Park Hotel. And they're playing Limerick. It was been Casey was the manager. Not Casey, was Eamon Cregan was the manager. Yeah. And what was your man was a great hurler for Limerick back then? Before Limerick were Limerick, Casey.
Mike Hoolan, he's on that team. Gary Kirby still on the team. One.
Yeah, there was I think of it anyway. So brilliant game of hurling.
Kieran Kerry,
that's it. Yeah, he was a brilliant hurler. Comes down to they're 2 points behind. Limerick scored 2 in injury time, and I was on the side of the pitch for the whole thing. So I was like, if there was a hurl broken, someone would throw it at me, and I'd give the selector the appropriate hurl, and that's what got me onto the pitch and in the dressing room. It wouldn't happen now. Looks 10, and they get a free. Dara Ryan picks up a ball. Leathers it forward. It gets through midfield. Adrian Fenlon was in midfield, one of the best sideline cutters of a ball that ever played. And I think Mitch Jordan gets it, or maybe Rory Jacob, and he turns inside, and whoever's marking him from Limerick says, well, do you know what? I'll wait 30 yards out. We're 2 points up. I'll just take him down here. Puts the hand over the shoulder, pulls him down, and it's a free. And it's 1 minute to go. And the nod comes from Damien Fitzhenry. Now, Nash has made it a thing in recent years, but it was unheard of. And he comes up, and he was my hero, Damien Fitzhenry. Like, I don't know why. And he picks up the free, 30 yards out. The whole Limerick team are in the goal, and he absolutely leathers it into the top right corner. And if you've been on the pitch in Croke Park on the sideline, there's a kind of an incline up to the middle of the pitch. It's almost a slight V. Mm-hmm. So as a 10-year-old kid sitting down, my eye line is basically the middle of the pitch, and the crowd erupts, I'm on the side of the pitch, 1 point up, game almost over, and Damon Fitzhenry literally tears back like a 100-metre sprinter back down. The footage is still online because Limerick could have pucked it out.
Yeah.
And for me, he was like Jesus Christ walking on water, because all I could see was this man floating through the middle of Croke Park. And Wexford won the game. Should have won the All Ireland. Should have beaten Tipperary at least in the semi final. Went to replay. Who won the All Ireland?
Fitzhenry scored 2 goals that day, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
He did, yeah. Brilliant, and a really nice guy. Brilliant hurler. That was, and it's real vintage now looking back.
Yeah, but I think like loads of players didn't wear helmets, but the fact that you could always see what he looked like and was always, I mean, their defence would have been under pressure a lot, so he had many opportunities to show just how good he was. But you could sense that he had world class reflexes.
Yeah,
that this is somebody who's doing something exclusive to us, but is as good as anybody we're seeing in any other
Needless
sports.
to say, I didn't score when I was pucking balls at him the Saturday before at Croke Park as an 11-year-old.
Where did the Leeds United love come from?
Die hard. It's funny with all these English teams, like it makes no sense why people get so invested in these teams, really. The David O'Leary team in the noughties was when I was first started watching Champions League.
They were class.
They were class. And you had the likes of Gary Kelly and Ian Hart. Ian Hart was the thing. So you had that Irish connection. And one of my best friends, who at the time I would really looked up to, supported Leeds. So that kind of was like, okay, well, ground's in. But I'd never actually been to Ellen Road. And it was like, it was a bleak 15 years from that Champions League.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you picked a tiny little window where things were interesting and good, and then afterwards...
And again, it was like people giving me shit about the Kerry jersey and the Dublin accent.
You had
like,
it up against you.
Like, no, Leeds is... And as the worse we got and the more people laughed at me, the more passion I got about. And -15, the bottom of League One in 2007 was a low ebb. Anyway, Marcelo Bielsa arrives in 2018. And I mean, I can understand why people get involved in cults and religions, because like we were in football wasteland. We'd no hope. We had the Chilino era, who just ran the club like a circus. And it was like anything. We needed something to cling to. And then all of a sudden I was like, why is a former manager of Argentina taking over a second division? Bielsa comes in, and football for me is a lot of overpaid people, and it's become quite commercialised, and the Premier League is a bit like it's more a commercial thing than a sporting league. Anyway,
wait until you get back, you'll be like, oh, the Premier League's amazing.
Well, I did. It was amazing, and then it was like drop back out. I was like, I hate getting pumped 7-0 every week. But Bielsa came in and brought old school coaching, brought a force of nature, made them go out and pick up rubbish at the start to see what the average Leeds United fan had to do to earn the money to go see them. Didn't spend wild amount of money, and turned a team that finished 15th, or a squad that finished 15th, to a title-winning team within 2 years. And it doesn't happen anymore in football. And it was literally like a religion. So anyway, I decided 2019 I need to go to Ellen Road, having watched it every week. And I brought my dad, who wouldn't be a Leeds fan, but was really invested in the GAA idea of Bielsa. So we go over anyway. I was working with a fella called Jason Madeley, who... his father was Paul Madeley, and he said, listen, I'll sort you the tickets and I'll bring you over. Pick this Friday night game against West Brom in the first Bielsa season. I was slightly nervous. I was like, I just don't want this to be a disappointment, because you have reputation of English clubs and it's a bit different or whatever, and I just want this to be good. Anyway, we go over, have a great day in Leeds, bring my dad. We go to the Peacock before the atmosphere starts to build. We had lost to QPR midweek, and it was almost this moment. That's the thing with a promotion run. Every game is a cup final. And it was this pressure cooker of an atmosphere. And we were all telling stories beforehand. And my dad, who wouldn't be the most social person, was really invested in talking to Jason about all the old stories. Anyway, we get out there half an hour before, and you see the blue bucket down there. And it's literally like waiting for a religious figure to arrive to give his sermon in front of the worshippers, the 36,000. And the pitch in Ellen Road is like covered by, it's basically at the bottom of a hill. It's in a hole in Leeds, and it feels like everything leads to this Ellen Road at the bottom. And marching on together is the anthem that comes on before, and they sing it like it's like there's nothing else happening in Leeds apart from this football club, and there's nothing else matters apart from this man bringing them back to the promised land. And kicks off, and to describe Bielsa's football, it was just gung-ho football. It was like the left and right back were basically extra wingers. Calvin Phillips played a quarterback role, and if you were lucky, you would keep 2, but it was usually 1 at the back in front of the goalkeeper, and it was like a row of 7 across the last third of the pitch. And kicks off, and 27 seconds in, goes out to Harris on the left wing. Everyone's wondering, how's this match going to go? He turns inside. He's got basically 6 options. The West Brom back 4, like, what are we doing here? Gives it to Hernandez, and he pings it in from about 35 yards out into the top left-hand corner. 27 seconds.
Yeah.
And I have never, like you talk about Croke Park when McMenam's goal go in, I have never heard force of noise. They went on to win 4-0. I have a great photo at the house of myself and my dad, who doesn't smile that often. He's a typical country man, and the 2 of us are in the stands. And that was our first trip to Ellen Road. But what made it was he came away that day and he goes, everyone loves in West Yorkshire to hear the Dublin crowd coming over, the Irish crowd coming over. And he goes, this is just like being at a club match, a GA match. It's like pure, unfiltered passion.
Yeah. And did your dad start following Leeds a bit more afterwards?
He didn't have a choice, and he would follow now. He would just sends me now is articles on Bielsa in Uruguay.
I know it's.
It was sad the way it ended. It felt like it had to end with Bielsa and Leeds because it was becoming outrageous. But he would have turned it around in his own right, because that season's interesting. So that's the 1st of March 2019. But Leeds don't go up that year, so it's Norwich and Sheffield United get the automatic promotion.
We lose to Derby in the second.
Exactly, Aston Villa beat Derby in the playoff final, but it's the next season he comes back up.
Villa kills me now seeing them playing Juventus and Bayern,
good.
and I go, and Bielsa made us give them the goal back in Ellen Road.
It's so mad, yeah. People forget that. So
we were both so bad at that point. Now you're in the Champions League. And
Conor Howrahan screamed and shouted the place down, and Bielsa went, what happened? It was like, there was a player injured, and Bielsa made them give them the goal back. It's like they should write a play about that. Like, Bielsa is a real football person who's fallen out with Suarez.
Do you remember when he was caught spying and then he gave a presentation on how he spied? This guy doesn't care.
It's just research.
But he fell out with Suarez, and I guarantee that tells you more about Suarez than Bielsa. And that was the thing. That he did no English. So how, again, it goes into this messiah complex. He had no English. He used a translator. The translator was almost as famous as Bielsa. Never complained about the referees. It was old school, and his mantra is football is for the people. He only works for teams that are like the likes of Atletico Bilbao or a Lille or a Marseille. It's teams that are the working class people almost. And he goes, football is for people who need football in their lives.
Yeah. I mean, like, Dave O'Leary did a phenomenal job with that Leeds side in the turn of the century. But can you imagine Bielsa with Harry Kewell, Mark Viduka, and in-form Alan Smith,
but it wouldn't
Robbie
work.
Fowler,
it wouldn't
Robbie
work.
Keane?
Everyone goes, well, why is Bielsa so amazing? Why, like, he's never really won anything. There's no point in him going managing a Man City or a United because there's too many prima donnas, and his whole mantra is he goes to places that are looking for someone to give them back their culture through football, like the likes of the Leeds or the Bilbao, or the Uruguay now. And look what he's done with Uruguay in even a year.
Apparently there's a brilliant book. It's either written by his sister. There is one that his translator wrote as well, but a friend of mine has been raving about this book, and it's on my list of things to do. But he's got an incredible story, and I really hope it works out at Uruguay and we get to see him on the world stage. Cup. That would be unbelievable. So you've talked about your obsession with golf, and the final 2 are both golf. Let's start with the Masters, and we'll finish with Harrington. You were at the Masters this year.
Yeah, and this is just about the Masters. So I was very fortunate to go, and I went on the Thursday, Friday, and I would need another hour to describe aptly the experience, but to cut it into 2 or 3 minutes. For me, one of the biggest sporting stories in Ireland at the moment, maybe, well, you can disagree with me, is Rory McIlroy winning another major. It feels
we talk about it all the time. And look at the US Open this year.
I wasn't a McIlroy fan in my youth because he was just a prodigy and he wasn't very relatable, and he's actually become more relatable in recent years. He's an absolute genius at his sport, but there's a vulnerability that makes him so compelling, and it feels like he's trying to win his first major again, which is brilliant. But anyway, I go to the Masters, and in my college years, I used to send my parents down to Ventry every week of the Masters, and we used to basically have a Masters week in our house. I don't even know the details, but basically what I'd say is to all my mates, it's like, from Wednesday, par 3, we're going to have pre-drinks and go out on the piss in Dublin, but you're welcome to stay in the house for the whole duration of the Masters. You just bring your own food for the barbecue outside, and you bring your own drink. And I would have people would stay in my house for 4 days, and we would literally watch the Masters all day, drinking cans and having a barbecue. We would go out Saturday night, and it would go on for 4 days straight. And it was first come, first serve. So if on Wednesday, people would be coming really early to get the front row seats for the week. Well, I have like 15 people in my house, and then the bleachers were out the back. I used to move the couches out the back with the worst view. So I was obsessed with golf and the Masters in particular, and I got to go. We fly into Charlotte, and we rented the car. There's a group of us, Christy and Vinny, 2 older friends of mine who play golf with, and we drive down, and you start to see the exits on the motorway for Augusta, and it's like almost like this fictional place. And you drive into the town, and like Washington Road is, I know you've had Connor on before describing it, it's like the Long Mile Road, but like way worse. And actually, you wouldn't know there's the biggest sporting event in the world's going on that week, because apart from the couple of golfers walking around, there's no real sense that there's a massive event. But then you see this hedge, and I remember seeing the hedge, and it's that particular shade of green, and you go, that's the Augusta green. And anyway, didn't get in for 2 days. We were in town going out or whatever, and we get in on the Thursday, and there was a weather delay for 2 hours, so we were actually outside the gates, and it's literally like waiting outside the gates of heaven, because even like the road through the car park is all immaculate, and we're waiting there for 2 hours, and then all of a sudden they go, play is going to start at 10:30, gates are opening in 20 minutes, and it was like literally about to enter heaven. You walk through, you go through these massive white security things. They stop you and they give you the little spiel in that southern drawl, and they go, you all have a good day at the Masters. And you walk through anyway, and the first thing I saw when I was walking down was the ranges on your left. Gary Player, Tom Watson, Jack Nicklaus warming up for the honorary.
Wow.
And the boiler suits of the caddies, and I was like, oh my God, I'm here. And it's amazing, you're in this place in the middle of nowhere in America that you've never been anywhere near, but you feel like you know every single part of it. And I got to the ceremonial tee-off, and Fred Ridley comes out, and you see the green jacket. And it's the first time I've actually got slightly emotional, which may sound a bit strange, but you're like, I've been watching this since I was 6 years of age, and I'm actually here. And he does his thing, and they tee off or whatever. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? Grabbed a coffee, and player goes off the first tee on Thursday, and I'm going to walk the back 9 by myself. So I went off the 10th tee, coffee in hand, and had the best 1 hour walk of my life. Do you know what makes the Masters? You're not allowed to bring your phone. So I walked down 10, and I'm like, that's where Bubba hit the hook. That's where McIlroy hit it off the tee. You made the triple. Then you go down 11, and you get to 11, and you come around this corner, and you see Rays Creek, 11th green. Out in the distance, you see 12, and you see 13 tee. And I remember I literally just stopped, and I was like, and I got a little spot where I sat for 5 minutes down near 13, so you can see 12th green on your left, 13th fairway on your right, and 13th green. And normally you'd whip out the phone, you start taking videos. There's no phone, so I literally just stood there and actually was completely engaged with where I was, completely present. I was like, that's where Jordan Spieth hit it in the water. That's where Seve would have hit that shot. Right behind me was where Mickelson hit the shot out of the trees on 10. And it was for the 2 days, the first couple of hours, I was looking for my phone all the time. But by the time I'd been there for the 2 days, just completely forgotten about the outside world. And you actually talk to people. So if you need to know the time, you go to someone, you go, sorry, sir, can I get the time? And they go, oh, it's because I don't have a watch. So it's 10:30. And then you talk for 10 minutes about the golf. And it felt like how I would like the world to be. And certainly the phone is destroying me, and I need to get on top of it. And those 2 days were just absolute bliss in my favourite place in the world.
Yeah, the phone addiction is real, isn't it?
Yeah.
That bubble as well, it kind of only adds to the whole sense of tension, because everybody's totally invested in everything that's happening, which is very, very rare in life. Like we're at the rugby, and people are getting up and they're going for pints, and there's complaints about that, and people are chatting. And because the Masters, everything matters as well. That's the other thing.
Every shot.
A little bit to your point earlier on about every football match matters. When it matters, the games are good. But
I actually stood on the first tee that day when I've done the walk, and I remember Nick Dunlop, one of the top amateurs, and had won on the PGA Tour. I was right beside him, just where that camera is, right there, a couple of feet, and he puts the tee down on the first tee, and this guy's a professional golfer, and wobbling. You don't see that on TV. And then McIlroy was playing with Scotty Scheffler and Schauffele, and I watched them for all 3 days, and I got to see McIlroy, Scheffler, who won the Masters, and Schauffele, who won 2 majors this year. And McIlroy got up, and he actually stood beside me with Harry Diamond, the position I'd found, And you're just looking at a guy and going, this is literally the biggest day of his year. He's one of the biggest sports stars in the world. And you're seeing in front of you pressure. And he kind of and they just look like I wear all the golf clothes and I'm really impressionable. And they look a bit different to me now. And he's wearing this immaculate white Nike jumper. And you're like, but when it comes to it and they call his name, he takes a deep breath and he goes, whew, and you can see it affects them.
Yeah.
It's the top, yeah.
I think the thing about the golf is as well, you're this close to them. The rope is there and it's separating you, but you are literally this close to them as they are doing the thing that is the thing that we watch on TV. And whereas you're like, apart from when you were a 10-year-old, you don't get that close to big time sport in any other sport.
And on the tournament days and the Masters, they don't let that many people in, so you actually you can see everything.
Really?
I walked a couple of holes on Friday with Jerry McElroy.
Right.
And it's like hilarious. You're walking around with this guy's dad, and he's like, he's trying his best. Like, what more can he do? And I'm like, this is the most important thing.
I know.
I've never even met that guy. He's your son.
And it's going to only ratchet up year on year on year. Like, that's the thing. Yeah.
It'll happen.
I'd say outside of your immediate loved ones, the Masters is what you love most and what you're most passionate about.
Yeah.
What would you be willing to sacrifice in your life to get the green jacket on you for 10 seconds?
Me? No, it would be to play it. It would be to play it. And it is. I've played one or two of the top ones in America, and Augusta. There's always a way. There always a way. So
you just need to look for the right person.
You touched on it there. Augusta itself, like the town is nothing special at all, isn't it? Like this is it. Does the course really stick out like a mile?
It's very secluded and it's secret. You would drive by it. If you didn't know it was there, you would know it's there only for a sign that says Augusta National Golf Club members only. But the town is actually a snapshot of America. So you've got one side of the town is literally it's not very nice.
Yeah.
And there's poor people and homeless people walking around the streets. Then in the middle, you've got Augusta National Golf Club, which is a bastion of, I suppose, corporate America. And on the other side of the town, it's like Beverly Hills. So there's no middle class in America from what I've seen, particularly in that part of the world. And Augusta if you look at Augusta, it's like the haves, the have-nots. And right in the middle is this amazing sporting event. So you have to caveat all this event with what actually goes on around. Sorry, I keep talking.
We've gone way over time, but it's okay. We've got one last one. That's Pádraig Harrington winning the Open in 2007, the final round of that.
Keep it quick. Harrington was my hero growing up. Watched every single shot. I used to teletext, remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
My biggest thing as a kid was going on teletext before the coverage came on, and they used to have the Irish names in green on the bottom.
Yes.
And the biggest thrill was if you threw it on and the main leaderboard had a green name and it was P. Harrington. He obviously finally wins the Open in 07. He was 6 shots behind. I was playing for County Bale. I'm a member in Kerry, and we were our famous Jimmy Brune run in the 07 Jimmy Brune golf tournament. But there was a bit of, some people weren't happy that the kid from Dublin got picked on the team, so I was practicing hard. And it was a Sunday, so I said, you know what, I'm going to play the Sunday competition because Harrington's not really going to do anything from 6 back. And we were coming up the 9th fairway, and there was you didn't have phones that time. Well, I didn't. And this roar was let out from the clubhouse in County Bell. And you have the blast guidance out to the left in the clubhouse. And I said, okay, well, screw this. I'm playing shite anyway. So said to the lads, I'm going in. Something's happening here. And got in when he was on the 14th tee, just hold a birdie putt on 12. And again, it goes back to that thing of being completely present. It was just basically all the members of County Bale by the 16th hole standing looking at this small TV in a clubhouse at basically a Irish sporting hero realising his dream and potential. And it just sticks out for me as one of the great. I wasn't there, but I felt like I was there.
2007, 2008, Pádraig Harrington it's tough to find a more dominant Irish sports person in that small window of time.
In a Tiger Woods era. And for 156 players in these fields, for what Harrington did, why I loved him was he seemed to be a person that got the most out of himself, wasn't destined to be the Roy McIlroy or the superhero talent growing up, but he got every ounce of potential, the word I used earlier, out of himself, and that's why he always resonated with me. And I think probably as a kid I cried that summer when he won the 07.
There was 20 odd second places that people kind of forget now, that he was destined to be this close but no cigar golfer who was nearly good enough to win majors and then was like, nah, screw this. And once the dam burst. And
even like when I was on the 15th in Augusta, all these amazing shots, what I remember was that's where Harrington hit the 5 wood in 2007 when he was 3 back, and I was watching it in Quinns and Ventry and Kerry, and he came up 2 yards short and it landed on the green and rolled back. And I think if that stayed on the green, he could have won that Masters. But that's the level of obsession I had where I was walking around Augusta going,
there's a spot.
That's where he made the double from in 07.
That's the one you would have whipped out the secret phone and, I've got a photograph of this precise spot. And look, there is a new book out. It's called Season.
Book, yeah. So as I say, the book season, perfect Christmas stocking filler. That's hopefully going to go up on your wall here.
Yeah.
I've got the podcast, Roasted, which you can get on all the streams, where I basically interview notable Irish people, but through questions around food.
You got Brian O'Driscoll on?
Brian O'Driscoll, Sophie Becker from a sporting perspective, Bernard Dunn is out this week, who was a fascinating interview.
Incredible story.
We've got Leo Varadkar. It's all questions around food, what's in their fridge, lunchbox as a kid, worst meal. And then we've got the Christmas TV special on the 23rd of December. Recipes in the Irish Times every weekend. You'll see me in M&S, so I have it all. I have you covered.
That's busy. Listen out for the voiceover in the Christmas special. It's going to be pristine and perfect.
Oh, it was terrible.
Mark, thanks a million. That was brilliant. You had to be there.